for the most innovative private university in South India, the Innovative University, Alliance University. We have heard the views of the Chancellor, Dr. Madhukar G. Angur, and we now congratulate him for winning this award in the most innovative private university in South India. Request first Dr. Madhukar G. Angur, the Chancellor of Alliance University, share his views.
It's an honor to be here among educationalists to share some of my views about a topic which is close to all our hearts. Right to education is something that is less heard of when you compare that perhaps to right to information, for instance. As educators, we know that, and we all know as human beings, that education is a fundamental right for everybody, and it is more important that we educate our children. But in India, as you look back as to our own performance, we still have a long way to go. More than 80 lakh school children, one of the recent surveys called the RTE Forum said that more than 80 lakh school children are actually not going to school and taking up some odd jobs and so on. There have been some not-for-profit organizations that are actually involved in it. My point on this is, what can India do, because the topic is so sensitive and it's so close to our heart, that we could have better implementation of RT. As Mr. Kakkar himself said, how do you reach out to children so that they actually come to school? And in India, we have this enactment which says we should have free and compulsory education for children 6 through 14 years. And if you really look at what can be done, one of the models that I have studied in some depth is the US model, which is also an act which says No Child Left Behind Act. This act came in 2001, a lot of discussions occurred, and it went through a lot of controversies and so on. And it has now done a lot better than it did at the time of its early implementation phases. And perhaps we could take a few pages out of that as part of our own learning process. One of which is accountability. Our schools need to provide accountability to the performance of our students. So it is not just education, but it is the learning outcomes that is important. So perhaps, and again it might sound a little bit more stereotypical, but perhaps one has to look at outcome measures. Schools, because after all, education is both the center as well as state's responsibility. Schools that actually provide accountability, whether it is a standardized test scores or any form of outcome measures. It could be in the creative areas, it could be in the analytical areas, it could be in the skill gap areas and so on. So accountability is something which is really missing big time in the implementation of RT. The second area is awareness. Awareness is so poor, as I mentioned, about RTE itself. When recent surveys said that 1 in 7 people in India are aware of RTE, and that too it was confined to a certain section of people. So I don't know if it is true for the entire population, but it still shows that less than 15% of the people are even aware that right to education exists in this country, and let alone people in the villages. Even they are aware that they are eligible for free and compulsory education. Third one is, I think the NGOs need to be more involved in it. We have some very good examples of NGOs. There is an NGO in Andhra Pradesh called MV Foundation. They have been working on this right to education since early 1990s. And the statistics that they have provided shows that touched more than 500,000 students who should have gone to school but didn't go to school, and they brought them back into the system. In 1991, much before we even discussed about it in our country as an enactment as such. The fourth one, and it is also very important for us, is states have a responsibility to be able to integrate not just bringing children into school, but other aspects of it. Again, I want to go back to what Mr. Kakkar said. There are lots of non-academic issues that are very important to bring our children back into this fold. Because this right to education really means we should touch as close to as many children as possible. So that element is extremely important. And so the system by which providing child care or health care for children or midday meals or voucher programs or anything of that kind, bringing them closer to the fold of educational system is extremely important. And states can do this through an integrated plan. And finally, we always talk about this public-private partnership. What can private entities do? There's a lot private entities can do to bring in this, because we all, it is close to our heart, it's very important. We are all educators. That is what wakes us up in the morning, is because we are educators. And education is not a transaction. It is a lifelong learning. So I always get great pleasure in the midst of people who believe in education. Maybe the degree of our involvement in education could vary. But this private partnership, private-public partnership is something which is very, very important. Private entities can actually take ownership, whether it is academic or non-academic. For instance, look at Canada. In fact, Belgium has this, UK has this program, where they provide free transportation to school children. They just do this. And this is a non-academic one, but free transportation to children. We have done reasonably well when it comes to neighborhood requirements for RTE. The neighborhood requirement is we should have one primary educational institution or one primary school within a 1 kilometer radius and one higher primary educational institution within a 3 kilometer radius. This India has done reasonably well in terms of opening up schools. That is, we have about 78 or 80% of our schools meet that requirement. But still we have not been able to draw students into our system to the extent that we could. So this public-private partnership is something we all ought to look at and perhaps bring in businesses, companies, other universities. And I come from a university. We have adopted 9 schools in our area where we essentially get involved with both academic as well as non-academic. And we have also introduced an innovative program called the Rhodes Scholars Program. It's called the Karnataka Rhodes Scholars Program, where many of the institutions of higher learning and even other institutions, and I was very impressed with the range of institutions that received awards this morning. Essentially, they talk about immersion programs of varying degrees. We get faculty from abroad as well as domestic faculty. We have more than 350 faculty across various disciplines, but we have made it requirement now. We are actually beginning this in a more serious way this year, is our faculty ought to go to the districts of Karnataka. They have to literally go. It's called the Karnataka Rhodes Scholars Program. And they must adopt these schools within that. They must interact and come up with some research ideas that can work. So we have 30 districts also in Karnataka that are being touched, and of course we'll extend that to the rest of South India as well. But ultimately what we're really looking at is, it is not education for all. It is really learning for all that we're looking at, and that measured in learning outcomes and so on. So again, I want to congratulate all the educators who are all involved actively, and even non-educators. I know it is close to our heart. And thank you again for Plans Academy for giving me this platform.